Why do we exist? For most of us, it seems as though every day follows a familiar pattern. We wake up, fulfill whatever obligations we might have for the day, and go to bed, only to repeat the cycle the next day, and the day after that. But why do we do this? What is the ultimate purpose? Where is all of this leading us? What's the point of it all? Does there exist a straightforward, no-nonsense answer to the meaning of life that actually resonates? Overall, human life has improved significantly over the past millennium, with advancements in technology, medicine, and overall standards of living across most of the world. Yet despite these advancements, many men and women today would argue that our society is undergoing a mental health crisis. According to an ongoing study using the Gallup National Health and Well-Being Index, the percentage of U.S. adults who reported having been diagnosed with depression at some point in their lifetime has reached 29%. Nearly 10 percentage points higher than in 2015. The percentage of Americans who currently have or are being treated for depression has also increased to 17.8%, which is up about 7 points over the same time period. Both rates are the highest recorded by Gallup since it began measuring in 2015. Perhaps this rise in mental illness stems from a deeper, more concerning problem, which is the realization of life's inherent lack of meaning and purpose.
5 years ago, something very strange began to happen to me. At first, I began having moments of bewilderment when my life would come to a halt, as if I did not know how to live or what to do. I would lose my presence of mind and fall into a state of depression, but this passed, and I continued to live as before. Then, the moments of bewilderment recurred more frequently, and they always took the same form. Whenever my life came to a halt, the questions would arise: why and what next? Leo Tolstoy, excerpt from Confession.
Many individuals might experience meaningless as a kind of depression after experiencing a loss of a loved one, a job, a relationship, a loss of something physical like a house, or even the loss of an ability from a debilitating accident. Or like in the case of Leo Tolstoy and many others, the sense of meaninglessness can arise from the incessant questioning of one's own purpose. The dissatisfaction one has with their own life, along with the dread that ensues from questioning one's own purpose, can lead to what is now known today as existentialism, a philosophical movement that emerged in the 19th and 20th centuries, which confronts questions such as, what is the purpose of living? And what is the meaning of life? The very questions that have puzzled humanity for centuries. In this video, we will explore the principles of existentialism, where it comes from and how it relates to nihilism, and provide insights on how to navigate the daunting question of life's true purpose. By understanding and applying existentialist ideas, we can better confront life's challenges and find personal significance in our journeys through life.
Imagine a happy group of morons who are engaged in work. They are carrying bricks in an open field. As soon as they have stacked all the bricks at one end of the field, they proceed to transport them to the opposite end. This continues without stop, and every day of every year they are busy doing the same thing. One day, one of the morons stops long enough to ask himself what he is doing. He wonders what purpose there is in carrying the bricks. And from that instant on, he is not quite as content with his occupation as he had been before. I am the moron who wonders why he is carrying the bricks. Suicide note, as quoted in Existential Psychotherapy by Irvin D. Yalom.
One of the first people to describe themselves as an existentialist was a man by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre. The basis of his thought can be summed up as follows.
What all existentialists have in common is the fundamental doctrine that existence precedes essence. Jean-Paul Sartre.
To put this in simpler terms, it means we as human beings have no predefined box that we must fit into. We come into existence before we are given a reason for doing so. Existence precedes essence. When we are born, we are like blank canvases, waiting to be painted. To some, this could be a liberating perspective, but for many, this fact of life leads down a path of existential dread, the feeling of being overwhelmed by the amount of uncertainties life has to offer. And this problem only seems to worsen as we navigate the digital age, With unlimited access to information and the constant bombardment of other people's opinions and lifestyles, we are left with paralyzing choice anxiety when trying to decide which direction to take our lives. In the past, most people did not have to worry about such thoughts. Life was much simpler. You would be born with a predefined religion and most likely be working in whatever field your parents worked in. A child born on a farm would become a farmer. A child born from a carpenter would most likely also become a craftsman. And with no way of ever really exposing yourself to any other ideologies or cultures, you would live your entire life completely fine with the obligations and beliefs that were given to you at birth.
Before the advent of technology, life was straightforward. Choices were few, but there was peace in the simplicity. Unknown.
When thoughts of hopelessness and lack of purpose set in, we get trapped in what Viktor Frankl called the existential vacuum, where nothing awaits us but despair, which leads us to nihilism. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche is arguably the most renowned author on nihilism, having written extensively on the subject. Nihilism, as explored by Friedrich Nietzsche, is the philosophical viewpoint that life lacks intrinsic meaning, purpose, or value. In The Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche traces the origins of moral values and connects the rise of nihilism to the decline of religious and metaphysical certainties. He argues that traditional moral values, rooted in Judeo-Christian beliefs, have lost their grounding, leading to a cultural void. The death of God metaphor, famously introduced in The Gay Science, encapsulates this idea, suggesting that the foundational beliefs underpinning Western morality are no longer viable. Nietzsche writes, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him," emphasizing that the collapse of these values leaves humanity without purpose or meaning. And this is exactly what we are seeing in today's Western society. Along with a spike in mental health cases, we also see a decline in religious affiliation. According to a study done by the Pew Research Center, the religious landscape of the United States continues to change at a rapid pace. In Pew Research telephone surveys conducted in 2018 and 2019, 65% of American adults describe themselves as Christian when asked about their religion, down 12 percentage points over the past decade. Meanwhile, the religiously unaffiliated share of the population, consisting of people who describe their religious identity as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, now stands at 26%, up from 17% in 2009. And if we look further, we can see exactly which groups of people are experiencing the most amount of change in religious preferences. The data shows a wide gap between older Americans, baby boomers, and members of the silent generation, and millennials in their levels of religious affiliation and attendance. More than 8 in 10 members of the silent generation, those born between 1928 and 1945, describe themselves as Christians, as do 3/4 of baby boomers. In stark contrast, only half of millennials describe themselves as Christians. 4 in 10 are religious nuns, and 1 in 10 millennials identify with non-Christian faiths. What this tells us is that there seems to be a trend that the younger the generation, the less interest they have in identifying themselves with a particular religion. As a society, we are moving away from what was once regarded as the primary foundation of meaning and purpose. And personally, I've seen this phenomenon occur in my own family. I remember as a kid, my parents would always make a big deal about going to church every Sunday. Not only that, but we would take turns praying before dinner every time we would eat together. And then I left for college only to come back 4 years later and find that all of that was gone. None of us really go to church anymore, and we definitely don't pray before eating anymore. It's almost as if we never really did that to begin with. To me, it's crazy how something that seemed so important to us at the time, and a routine that was so ingrained into our lives, can just fizzle away like that over a span of a few years. And what concerns me most is that it happened so gradually that we barely became aware of it until it already had happened.
Just between you and me, let me tell you what's happening. What's beginning to take place in our society, without you ever being even vaguely conscious of it.
Society.
So now what? Religion is slowly being pushed out the window. ChatGPT 12 is going to replace our jobs in a few years. World War III can happen at any moment. The Earth is dying. So again, we are left asking ourselves, what is the point of it all? Why are we still here?
Just to suffer. Every night, I can feel my leg and my arm.
No, but for real, what are any of us doing? Are we all just destined to distract ourselves with menial tasks and shallow pleasures as we march headlong into eternal oblivion? Well, technically, yes. But not all hope is lost. There is something that we can do about it. Or rather, there are ways that we can cope.
You see, if you really want to rid yourself of all suffering, you should believe that there is a God. Whether or not you truly believe that he exists, you can be sure that God is always by your side.
Let's first take a look at one of the first and most well-known philosophers to tackle the lack of purpose and meaning in life, Søren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard is often regarded as the father of existentialism, emphasizing individual experience, choice, and subjective nature of reality. Central to his philosophy is the concept of the leap of faith, where Kierkegaard posits that rationality and objective analysis cannot provide ultimate meaning or purpose. Instead, individuals must make a subjective, passionate commitment to a higher purpose, often characterized by religious faith. This leap is not based on any logical evidence, but a deeply personal inward conviction. For Kierkegaard, commitment to a religious faith allows man to transcend finite ethical duties and align himself with the infinite, eternal source of meaning. One must embrace the belief in God despite the absence of objective proof. Although this appears to be a solid solution, as we've discussed earlier, this way of thinking seems to be dying out as we progress towards the future and we become increasingly focused on science, technology, and earthly pleasures, rather than continuing any religious practices. But even if religion was still going strong, the concept of the leap of faith is still a bit counterproductive. In his Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche describes how followers of Buddhism and Christianity are influenced by the ascetic ideal. Ascetics are those who have renounced earthly pleasures in favor of self-denying, abstinent life characterized by poverty, humility, and chastity. This is often done in hopes of eventually being rewarded with access to a higher plane of existence, a heaven or nirvana of some sort. Nietzsche argues that this ideal brings a more insidious form of suffering into our existence because it encourages us to view the world as a mere bridge to another. Yeah, this world sucks, but just wait until we get to the next one. Trust me, I heard it's way better. While Nietzsche does not entirely devalue the ascetic ideal, acknowledging that any meaning is better than no meaning, he notes that it still embodies a form of nihilism, as it represents a will to nothingness, a will opposed to the life we already have here on Earth. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche critiques past philosophers for their adherence to dogmatic beliefs and urges for a re-evaluation of values beyond conventional morality. Religious leaders will say that we must separate the world by sinners and saints. It then becomes easy for people to use religion as an excuse to silence those who stand against them, and in turn have control over the masses, and more importantly, have control over what they are allowed to consider to be true. In Beyond Good and Evil, it is written,
"He who fights with monsters might take care, lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil.
This is one of Nietzsche's most famous and well-known quotes. Here, he is basically giving us a warning that if you spend your time in conflict with someone or something very horrible, you run the very real risk that you will become just as horrible. In the context of religion, we have seen many examples of this. In many scriptures, it is stated to love thy neighbor, yet time and time again we see these so-called virtuous people commit heinous acts all in the name of their so-called faith. In the second part of the quote, the abyss is often interpreted to be our own mind, meaning if we spend too much time questioning our own existence, we begin to be consumed by dread and fall into the danger of succumbing to nihilism without seeking to transcend it. So now, if religion seems to be a hit or miss on whether or not it can satisfy those looking for purpose, is there anything else we can do? Let's go back to Nietzsche to see how he suggests we deal with the problem. First thing to understand is that Nietzsche makes a distinction between active and passive nihilism. Passive nihilism is a form of resignation and occurs when individuals recognize the absence of meaning and purpose but become paralyzed by this realization. In contrast, active nihilism is a confrontational stance where one seeks to overcome the void left by the collapse of traditional values by creating new values and meanings. A central concept in Nietzsche's philosophy is the will to power, which he sees as the fundamental driving force in humans, more so than even survival or reproduction. The will to power involves striving to assert and enhance one's own capabilities and influence. In the context of nihilism, the will to power serves as a mechanism for overcoming the void of meaning. Nietzsche believes that individuals must harness their will to power to create new values and purposes, and this concept is meant to be applicable in whatever the person chooses. For example, if you like rock climbing, then don't just go through the motions of rock climbing for the sake of having an interesting hobby. No, keep challenging yourself to climb new and more complicated terrain. Constantly try to learn and develop new techniques. Strive to become the best rock climber that you can possibly be. Power, according to Nietzsche, isn't restricted to a political control or cultivating a large following. Rather, it simply means to achieve mastery over whatever activity or interest you choose to delve into. It means harnessing the power and potential of one's own capabilities. Become a dancer, a bodybuilder, an artist, an engineer, or a YouTuber. Whatever your heart desires, just make sure you put everything you have into it, and perhaps then you will discover your own reason for living.
True power is not found in dominating others, but in mastering oneself. A person who lacks the will to power is destined to be a mere spectator in the game of life. The will to power.
This leads us to Nietzsche's next idea, the Ubermensch. The Ubermensch, or in English, the Overman, is a person who has overcome the void of nihilism by creating their own values and meaning in life. Instead of relying on external sources for purpose, the Overman looks within and uses their willpower, creativity, and strength to shape their own destiny. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he explores this idea through the character of Zarathustra, who embodies the spirit of overcoming. Zarathustra declares,
I teach you the Overman. Man is something that shall be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? Thus spoke Zarathustra. Prologue.
Zarathustra demonstrates the spirit of overcoming through developing 4 key characteristics. Number 1, self-creation. The Overman creates their own values and purpose. They don't accept ready-made answers, but instead ask deep questions and find their own path. Number 2, will to power. This isn't about power over others, but about mastering oneself and one's environment. It's the drive to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness. Number 3, overcoming obstacles. The Overman sees challenges as opportunity to grow. They embrace difficulties and use them to become stronger. Number 4, living authentically. The Overman lives true to themselves, not conforming to societal expectations or pressures. Nietzsche's concept of the Overman offers a powerful way to overcome the despair of nihilism. By creating your own values, embracing your will to power, and living authentically, you can transform the void of meaninglessness into a life full of purpose and strength. It's a call to rise above the ordinary and become the master of your own destiny. This makes life not only bearable, but also deeply fulfilling. When faced with the abyss, don't step back, step forward and become the Overman.
Let your will say, the Overman shall be the meaning of the earth. Man is a rope, tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. Thus spoke Zarathustra.
And finally, we land at eternal recurrence. Imagine if you had to live your life over and over again exactly the same way for all eternity. Every joy, every sorrow, every moment repeated endlessly. This idea is known as eternal recurrence, a thought experiment first introduced by Friedrich Nietzsche in The Gay Science. It's a powerful concept designed to help us evaluate how we live our lives and find meaning even in the seemingly meaningless world. This idea challenges individuals to live authentically and fully, embracing their experiences and actions as if they were eternal. It serves as a counter to nihilism by encouraging the creation of a life worthy of eternal repetition.
I want to teach the idea that gives many the right to erase themselves, the great cultivating idea. Everything becomes and recurs eternally. Escape is impossible. To endure the idea of the recurrence one needs, freedom from morality, new means against the fact of pain, pain conceived as a tool, as the father of pleasure, the enjoyment of all kinds of uncertainty, experimentalism, as a counterweight to this extreme fatalism, abolition of the concept of necessity, abolition of the will, abolition of knowledge in itself, greatest elevation of the consciousness of strength in man as he creates the Overman, from the will to power.
Here, Nietzsche is claiming that as we pursue the creation of the Overman, we simultaneously can fulfill eternal recurrence. If one is wholeheartedly committed to embracing the will to power and living authentically, then one should have no fear of being trapped in an endless cycle of repetition, for they are simply being who they wish to be and doing simply what they want to do. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence is a powerful tool for finding meaning in life. By imagining that every moment will repeat forever, we are encouraged to live intentionally, embrace responsibility, and find joy in the present. Because after all, the present moment, if you really think about it, is the only thing that exists. No matter what time it is, no matter where you are, it is always now. So why worry about a meaningless past or future if all the meaning that you ever need exists right here, right now? In the words of Master Oogway, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today
is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
Okay, so we covered a lot today, so let's do a little recap to make sure that we really understand everything. The meaning of life has been a question discussed since ancient times, and throughout history, people have formulated countless opinions on what it means to live a purposeful life. After millennia of pondering and theory crafting, it seems as though the only thing that we're able to conclude is that there's no clear evidence on what the meaning of life is, and if there even is any. Religion, however, does seem to provide us with answers. Christianity, for example, states that the meaning of life is to seek divine salvation through the grace of God by adhering to certain values and ethics that have been imposed on us by God. Danish theologian and philosopher Søren Kierkegaard saw religion as the ultimate way of solving the problem of life's purpose by embracing a set of ready-made answers that are attributed to the divine. He encourages people to take a leap of faith if they aren't able to create meaning for themselves. But as Nietzsche points out, by doing so we hide from reality, as we cover up the existential problem by adapting a narrative that lacks evidence. In the current information age, we see that especially in Western society, religion is in a decline. More and more people refer to themselves as agnostic or atheist and have cast away their belief in God. At the same time, we see that mental health illness is on the rise. More people today claim to have had some encounter with depressive thoughts more than ever before. Everything in this world has become so monotonous and meaningless that we indulge in rampant consumerism and constant distractions to avoid confronting the profound sense of purposelessness that haunts our lives. Eventually, nihilism sets in, prompting us to question, what's the point and why continue? Nietzsche encourages an active response to these questions through the will to power, the concept of the overman, and the embrace of eternal recurrence. His philosophy transforms the despair of nihilism into a call for the creation of new values and more authentic mode of existence. He urges individuals to confront the void left by the decline of traditional values and to actively participate in the creation of new ones. By embracing the will to power and striving towards the overman, Nietzsche offers a pathway to transcend nihilism and achieve a higher state of being. The beauty of living in a universe without inherent meaning is that we have the power to define our own. Each of us holds the unique ability to decide what is meaningful in our lives. Waiting for the world to give you a grand purpose will get you nowhere. Instead, the search for meaning should be something that is a deeply personal journey, one that is shaped by our own imaginations. When life is meaningless, it's not because life itself lacks purpose, but oftentimes it's our own definition of what purpose should be that lead us into despair. The stuffed animal that you keep in your room becomes special if you make it special, just like a stone becomes significant if we imbue it with meaning. The simplest, most mundane things can hold profound significance if we choose to see them that way. So rather than chasing society's construct of meaning, we can embrace freedom to define it ourselves. We can find joy and purpose in everyday moments. Go on that hike that you've always said that you wanted to go on. Go to the park and watch the dogs play. Talk to your neighbors, or to your cat if people aren't your thing. These simple pleasures can become deeply meaningful when we simply decide that they are. Embracing the possibility that life's meaning is ours to create opens the door to endless potential for fulfillment and joy. By finding meaning in the small everyday experiences, we enrich our lives and discover a deeper sense of what it means to be a human being on this beautiful rock we call Earth. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of effort into doing all the research and writing the script. I also tried really hard to improve the lighting, so let me know if that's better. And also let me know if the audio is better. I noticed in my last video, it felt like it was kind of like cutting off a little bit, but I played around with a lot of the settings and hopefully I'm getting closer to sounding like a real YouTuber. But of course, I know that this whole thing is a learning experience, so I will keep improving. And please, if you have any suggestions on the lighting or the audio, please let me know in the comments. But more importantly, I would really appreciate it if you could share your thoughts in the comments about this topic. Personally, as I navigate through my 20s, I find the concept of existentialism and nihilism to be kind of all up in my head right now, I guess. So personally, it brought me a lot of comfort to read a lot of Nietzsche's work, because it reassures me that I'm not the only one with these sorts of thoughts. And it also shows me that there is a way out, and that there's more to life than finding some grand purpose. I think when we get caught up in work and school and, everyday mundane activities, it's easy for us to kind of lose sight of just how lucky we are to be alive, to be human, just to feel things, whether they be good or bad. And yeah, that's why I wanted to create this video, so that I can share some of the ideas that I've been reading about, and hopefully help some of you guys if the existential dread has gotten you down lately. But anyway, I still don't really know how to do outros yet, so I'm just going to leave you with a quote from our boy, Friedrich Nietzsche. Become who you are, and make what only you can make. Bars. In the words of Master Oogway. In the words of Master Oogway.